WMEX Quincy, Boston, streaming on the radio.com app. Just tell your smart speaker to play WMEX on radio.com. The greatest hits of all time are back. This is the all-new WMEX.
WMEX Boston.
The following program is brought to you in living color on
WMEX.
Hello, baby.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Hello, mother. Hello, father.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with flies.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Newman.
Bobby Katzen's got a time machine. He can take you back when you were in your teens. Welcome, everyone. You're gonna have some fun. Tune in every Sunday. Yeah, Bobby's the one. Oh, Bobby Katzen's here on MEX. You never know where he might wanna take you next. Could be to TV land or your favorite band. He's bringing back your memories, so call and lend a hand. Now you could win some prizes. He's sure to make you smile. Now what you realize is 1510's the hot spot on your radio dial. Do listen for a while. Bobby Katzen's turning back the clock. So get yourself ready for some radio talk. Go and grab your phone, call and say hello. No more waiting, here he is, the Bobby Katzen Show. The Bobby Katzen Show. The Bobby Katzen Show. The Bobby Katzen Show. Bobby Katzen.
I think half the show is over now. I think half the show is over now. Well, hello there. It's Bob Katzen. Maybe we're even on the air. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. All right, it's Bob Katzen in your radio, and we're here for a big 2 hours between now and 8 p.m. on the Bob Katzen Show on the new WMEX. Where's my buddy Jimmy J? Has he left already? Oh, Jimmy, he's gone?
Yeah,
he's gone?
He's gone.
He runs out of there very quickly now. I don't think he likes me anymore.
Well, he made me take some stuff into his car, so he needed to get out of here.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll forgive him this week. We'll see what happens next week. Hi, Jimmy. I'm just kidding. All right, George is here. George, are you present?
I am present.
Connor, present?
Yes, sir. Hello.
See, he calls me sir. I like that. Kissing up to the boss. That's good. George, you never call me sir.
Mr. Katzen.
That's a little better.
It's the best way to get up in life, you know what I mean? Nothing wrong with some brown nosing here and there.
How are you, boys?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bob?
The prima donna diva Bobby is doing just fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking. You know, I noticed, you know how people used to hang things from their rearview mirror, like in the old days, fuzzy dice, and these days they'll hang religious stuff or graduation tassels. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they still do it today?
Well, what I notice as I take my walk every day, I walk a mile a day, and I pass all these parked cars, they'll have masks on their rearview mirrors now. That's where they hold their mask. It's like a sign of the times.
Yeah, it's so sad. But
it's so sad. It's just awful. The mask, it says no more crosses there, no more fuzzy dice, no more Jewish star, no more anything.
Yeah.
Except the masks, the damn masks. I'm so sick of the masks.
What a time to live. But hey, I mean, whatever we can do to be safe, even as we head outdoors from driving, I'm in for that. So
that's true.
If you have to put up with that right now, then so be it. Sometime in the future, this will be a distant memory.
That's what they've been saying for months now. I'm not so sure. When is that going to happen?
Hopefully soon.
All right. I'll look forward to it. Now, we have a big show coming up. We have a guest on tonight. We have Stephen Talbot, who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver. You remember Leave It to Beaver? It was on from 1959 to 1964 or 65 or so. And he played Beaver's best friend forever, BFF, although they didn't have BFFs forever back then, or BFFs, which already has the forever in it. Does anybody, including me, have any idea what I'm talking about? Anyway, he does a lot of documentaries now. He worked for Frontline for many years, lived in Boston, is a award-winning documentary maker, and we're going to have him on about 6:15 or so, talking about his current career and the old Leave It to Beaver show as well, and we'll take your calls. We welcome your calls at 781-834-WMEX. That's 781-834-WMEX. And by the way, I can hear myself in echo, you guys, so I don't know what, that may be because of that technical problem we had before. I sound like I'm introducing myself at Fenway Park. Now batting. Bobby Katzen. Number two.
Oh, no, you sound good to me.
Yeah, but I'm hearing myself. But
right.
I don't mind hearing myself. What the heck? Now, George, we must play your intro. Everybody on this show has an intro or a jingle. So let's welcome George.
George Yazbeck.
And let's welcome Connor.
Ladies and gentlemen, here are four of the nicest youngsters we've ever had on our stage. The Beatles. Bring them on.
Bit of a different direction this week.
Somehow we confused Connor with Ed Sullivan and the Beatles. No, it says that in the script that we're supposed to do that, and it's supposed to be funny. See, Connor, I'm sorry, your jingle is not ready yet.
Hey, that's all right. You know, I've been confused with the Beatles before.
Oh,
they say
really?
I look like Ringo in high school.
Connor, take that as a compliment.
He looked like Ringo, really.
Yeah, big nose, you know, floppy hair. Hello, George. It's the Beatles.
Oh,
not
very
bad.
good.
So we hope to have it by next week.
Oh, I'm excited. Can't wait.
So here's what we have coming up. Besides the big interview with Stephen Talbot, Gilbert from Leave It to Beaver. Coming up in hour number 2, it's going to be all our contributors. Ken Golner, the official news anchor of the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show, will be reporting the latest baby boomer news, and the lead story actually is that Eddie Van Halen died. Then we have Len Mihalovich, the part-time hero and full-time TV remote operator for the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. He'll be reviewing Batman, the original TV show. Rob Stone, our movie maven, will be reviewing The 10 Commandments, and it's one of his most sarcastic and funniest reviews ever, and you're going to love it. So all that's coming up in hour number 2, and we'll take your phone calls for Gilbert Bates, better known in real life as Stephen Talbot, in hour number 1 in about, maybe just a few minutes or so.
It's Bob Katzen, who always wanted to be a Brady or a Partridge or a Cleaver on
1510 WMEX. Boston's best.
781-834-WMEX is the telephone number. And what we're going to do before we get Steve, as we get Steve on the line, we're going to play Name 5 in 5, which is one of my favorite games here. I've come to really like this game. We're going to give you a category, and you'll have to name 5 things in that category. And you have 5 seconds to do it, all right? And if you do, then you win a subscription to Reminisce Magazine, North America's top-selling nostalgia magazine, celebrating the good times with fun, engaging stories about what we loved in the past and how it shapes our lives. That must be true also, because it says it right on this piece of paper in front of me. So if you'd like to play Name 5 in 5, give us a call right now at 781-834-WMEX, and we'll give you your category, Name 5 things, and you will win. Taylor, you're first with Bob Katzen live on the new WMEX. Hey, Taylor, where are you calling from?
From Providence.
Providence?
Yep.
Like the heavenly Providence or Providence, Rhode Island?
Oh, Rhode Island, even better.
Rhode Island? Yeah, it's similar. Rhode Island is heaven, not. Okay, so here we go. We're going to give you a category, and you need to name 5 things or people, whatever it is, in that category, and you will win. It's called Name 5 in 5. And you heard earlier, you remember Leave It to Beaver, right?
Of course.
Of course. So you heard earlier that we're having Stephen Talbot on. So in his honor, your category, ready? Name 5 characters other than the Cleaver family members and other than Gilbert in Leave It to Beaver. Go.
Eddie, Lumpy, Miss Martha.
I'm sorry. You got Eddie and Lumpy. What was the third one you were going to say?
Martha.
Martha. Oh, Aunt Martha. That was the Cleaver's aunt, Aunt Martha.
Right.
That would have been a good one. She's a little kind of somewhat obscure. There were other Miss Landers, Larry Mondello, Richard, others, et cetera, et cetera. Now, people listening at home, you think this is easy. You hear it and you say, oh, I could name 5 of anything in 5 seconds. When the pressure is on, it's not that easy. Right, Taylor?
Oh, no, not at all. I know Martha just because Madge Kennedy, who was the actress who played her, was actually close to my grandmother.
Oh, really? Madge Kennedy, the actress who played Aunt Martha, was friendly with your grandmother?
Right. Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. When did you find that out?
She just bragged about it all the time.
Oh, really? Now, she was in some other shows, wasn't she? Aunt Martha? I can't remember. Would somebody get the Google, and we'll look it up. Well, that's great. See, what a small world it is. Your grandmother and Beaver's Aunt Martha, as they say on the show.
Yep.
What a small world.
That was her.
All right, Taylor, thanks very much for the call. Sorry you didn't win this time, but we'll try again. It sounds easy when you're doing it. It's like watching a TV game show. You're sitting home doing, hey, I could do that. Then when you're actually on, it's like you have literally 5 seconds. I mentioned the category, then millisecond later you have to start reciting it, and you got 5 seconds. All this stuff's going on in your head, and before you know it, the buzzer comes on. Thanks for being with us. Okay, have a good one now. 781-834-WMEX is the contact number. Okay, now, I believe Stephen is on standby. He's with us and waiting, so let's do a little Leave It to Beaver opening theme.
Leave It to Beaver. Starring Barbara Billingsley, Hugh Beaumont, Tony Dow, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Yeah. Where's Stephen Talbot as Gilbert? Didn't that used to be in the intro? No, I guess not. All right, so many of you know my next guest as Gilbert Bates, Beaver's BFF, before they even had BFFs on Leave It to Beaver. He was on 56 episodes from 1959 to 1964, and some of you may know him as an award-winning documentary filmmaker who was a staple on WGBH's Frontline right here in Boston for many years, and he made documentaries like, and I'll bet you have watched some of these, The Heartbeat of America, which was an investigation of GM, General Motors, The Long March of Newt Gingrich, Rush Limbaugh's America, Spying on Saddam, that would be Saddam Hussein, and The Battle Over School Choice, Why America Hates the Press. I think that's an ongoing documentary. And the 60s, the years that shaped a generation. He began as a producer and on-air reporter for KQED in San Francisco. He had early successes with 2 documentaries that set the tone for his career. Broken Arrow was the first one in 1980, an investigation of nuclear weapon accidents, and the case of, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Dashiell Hammett in 1982, a biography of the mystery writer. Both films won George Foster Peabody Awards and established Steve as someone who could do both investigative reporting and arts films. And hello, Steve, and thanks for being with us.
Hey, Bob. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Nice to have you here. You are the first.
Nice to be there.
You're the first guest on the program. We started the program a few weeks ago, and you are our actual first guest. So we will remember this moment forever.
All right. Launch the ship.
Yes, launching the ship. Exactly. So now you have a Boston connection through GBH and Frontline. You lived here for a while. Is that right?
Yeah, well, almost. Virtually. I'm a Californian, born and raised in L.A. That's how I got into acting. My dad was an actor. And then I went to college back east. I went to Wesleyan in Connecticut. Had a girlfriend at BU in Boston. So I spent a lot of time in the late 60s in Boston with her. And then I worked for Frontline for almost 20 years. And I always was living in San Francisco. That's been my home for the past 40 years. But I commuted to Boston and would stay there for a week or 2 at a time, many times during a year. So I feel like Boston's a kind of second home.
So when you were at GBH full-time, you worked sometimes in Boston and sometimes in San Francisco?
Yeah, well, I always lived in San Francisco. I was lucky, got to be a Californian, which I am. But when I would make a documentary for Frontline, for WGBH, they would give me the assignment or pick something I wanted to do that I'd propose to them, and then they would send me out and I'd go around the country wherever that assignment took me to make the film. And then I would edit it in a combination of San Francisco and Boston. And when it was about to go on the air, I'd come back to Boston and do all the final arrangements.
Oh, cool. So you were kind of telecommuting before there was telecommuting.
Exactly. Bi-coastal, Bob.
Bi-coastal, yes. I love it. That's great. When you think of the old days, you think people are just glued in one office, in one place, in one studio. And today you think the exact opposite. Nobody's in any office anywhere. Everybody's working from home. Unbelievable.
Exactly. Everything's remote now.
It is. It's unbelievable. I was saying earlier, the whole COVID thing, off topic for a moment, but I was taking my walk today. I walk a mile a day. And remember fuzzy dice hanging from mirrors and religious artifacts hanging from mirrors and graduation tassels and things like that?
Sure.
Well, they're not there anymore. If you start looking in cars, you know what's hanging there? The masks. Everybody hangs their mask from their rearview mirror. That's it. There's nothing else there anymore. It's like it's
for some reason, I keep thinking, I'm an old English major, and I keep thinking of Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Mask of the Red Death.
Tell me the short version of that. I don't remember it.
The details are a little foggy, but it's about a plague. It's about a plague and a nobleman, and he has a big party, and the plague, as a kind of ghost, comes to the party, and everyone dies.
A pleasant ending.
It was Edgar Allan Poe. What can I say?
Of course. The Mask, I love it. Now, I don't think I read that, but if I did read it in high school, I probably read the Cliff's Notes version of it. Remember Cliff's Notes?
I sure do.
And what was the other one? There was another, like a rip-off of Cliff's Notes. It was, Monarch. Remember Monarch Notes?
Wow. No, I don't think I got beyond Cliff Notes.
You stuck with the original. I was doing the knockoffs. So now, could you tell the band, George, to get the rim shot ready, because I got one coming up. So, Stephen, once I actually interviewed the guy who invented Cliff's Notes, Cliff, and my first question to him was, how did you get started in the business? And Cliff said, well, to make a long story short, hey! I'm sorry, I just got lost there somehow. So
it's the first show, Bob. What the hell?
First show with a guest. I didn't really ask him that. I never even interviewed him. I never met the guy, but it was set up for a joke. So, all right, so tell everybody what you're doing now, work-wise.
Well, okay, so I was a kid actor and had a nice career that I loved doing as a kid. And then at a certain point, I outgrew it, I guess. And I went to high school and started playing football, got into my friends, got into classes. I got politically active, opposing the war in Vietnam. And I also got into documentary filmmaking in college. I was one of the first people, the first person, I think, at Wesleyan to make a documentary film. And that became my passion. I went to work for public TV in San Francisco, worked there for 10 years, and then Frontline for 20 years. And I've been making documentaries ever since. I think I've made something like 60 television documentaries by now, most of them for PBS, but some for NBC and other outlets. And I love doing it. Right now I'm doing an independent project documentary. The working title is The Movement and the Madman, and it's about 1969, the anti-war movement, two big demonstrations that happened that fall, a moratorium, which was a nationwide protest against the Vietnam War, and the biggest, it took place in hundreds of cities across the United States, over 2 million people involved. The biggest demonstration that day, October 15th, 1969, was in Boston, on the Boston Common. Over 100,000 people. It was the largest demonstration in the history of Boston. So that's what I'm doing. And the Madman refers to Richard Nixon.
Oh, Nixon.
No, Richard Nixon. 1969, Richard Nixon.
That's right.
That's all right. And Nixon had a strategy that he called his Madman strategy, which basically was to threaten any opponent he had, the Russians, the Chinese, North Vietnam, with the idea that he was kind of crazy, out of control, and would do anything to win, including using nuclear weapons. So what the film is about, this is now very thoroughly documented by historians, is that Nixon had this plan. He had a code name for it called Duck Hook, weird military code name, and it was to threaten North Vietnam with the use of nuclear weapons. And he called it off. This was an ultimatum, November 1st, 69. He called it off because of the two big anti-war demonstrations that fall, giant one in Washington, D.C., and that moratorium all across the country. So that's the film.
Wow, so the demonstrations actually stopped his using nuclear weapons in North Vietnam, you're saying?
Stop the threat. It's interesting It's a little unclear whether he actually would have carried through with that threat to use nuclear weapons. He definitely was about to carry through with other things he wanted to do, to bomb the dikes in North Vietnam, which would have destroyed the food source for North Vietnam, flooded. Henry Kissinger told him it would kill 1 million or 2 million people. So they were considering that, and bombing civilian areas, all sorts of horrible things. And, yeah, that's what he'd been threatening. He'd been telling the Russians to tell the Vietnamese that's what he was going to do. He'd been delivering direct messages to North Vietnam through Kissinger. And, yeah, he called it off, unbeknownst to the demonstrators.
The demonstrators did
It was
not
all
know.
secret.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. You've done a lot of research on this. Do you think he actually would have done this? What's your guess?
It's hard to say. I've talked to a lot of people who are still alive in the Nixon and Kissinger administration. This was a policy pretty much entirely developed by Nixon and Kissinger. They really ran foreign policy themselves. They kept the Defense Secretary Melvin Laird and Secretary of State Rogers kind of on the side. They sidelined them. They ran it pretty much all themselves. And I've interviewed Kissinger's sort of top 4 advisors, assistants at that time, and they've all documented this. They're in their 80s now, but lots of records have come out, formerly classified documents that have been released. So would he actually have done this? Hard to say. There's no definite answer to that, but he was definitely threatening to. And he went so far, I'll leave you with this, he went so far when he called off the actual attacks on North Vietnam that fall, he ordered a secret worldwide U.S. nuclear alert. Our B-52s were revved up and ready to go. Some actually took off from Alaska toward Russia, and it was to try to rattle Moscow and Hanoi to make them think, oh, my God, this guy is crazy enough. He could start a nuclear war. We better capitulate. They didn't, and the nuclear alert ended. But again, this was a secret, one of those very Cold War moments when we came closer to some sort of actual nuclear conflict.
Wow, I did not know any of this, and I bet most people don't know this. I'm flabbergasted to know this.
I think most people don't know. Bits and pieces have been told, and Nixon himself told a little part of this story in one of his memoirs. Kissinger wrote a little bit about it. Bob Haldeman, Nixon's aide, wrote a little bit about it. But really, sort of the proof in the pudding has been the release in the last 10 years or so of the Pentagon and Kissinger National Security Council documents in which all this is recorded, their plans.
Is Kissinger still alive, by the way, or not?
He is. Kissinger's pushing 100, and he is in no condition to be interviewed anymore. But I did interview Kissinger myself.
Tell me about that.
20 years ago.
How long ago?
20 years ago.
So tell me a little bit about that. How was that, interviewing Henry Kissinger? How cool is that?
It was very cool. It was fascinating. I've written about this, actually. I had a very strange experience with him. Even then, he, when I first came upon him, he had aged so much, but he still was, kind of very authoritarian, yelling at his staff. Here's what happened back then. I had just interviewed Robert McNamara, the former defense secretary. And McNamara, of course, late in his life, had come out and said he regretted the Vietnam War, that it had been a terrible mistake, and he wrote books about this, and he went to peace conferences in Hanoi to discuss it with our old enemies. And so, In Retrospect was the name of the book that McNamara wrote about it. So I just interviewed McNamara, and I think, I wish he'd said this much earlier in his life, but it was interesting and important that he came out later in life and said all that. When I went to Kissinger and said I had interviewed McNamara, this is unbelievable. I'll never get over this. He looked at me and started crying crocodile tears and rubbing his eyes, and he said, "Oh, what did McNamara tell you? Boo-hoo, I'm so sorry, boo-hoo."
Wow. Wow.
So that was kind of shocking and kind of revealing about Henry Kissinger.
Yikes. Wow. Do you have pictures of you and Kissinger?
I didn't have any. I have my film crew there, and, he didn't say. He was a very cautious, careful man, and he wouldn't say anything like that on camera. But this was off camera.
Right.
But, I used what he did say on camera. Kissinger had a great technique of stalling, which was to be incredibly boring in an interview.
Really?
He did. It was a very effective technique. He would do this very, very slow Germanic drawl, and, he would put you to sleep.
I love it. It's a gift from God. He's boring. I remember the first time I actually heard him speak. I don't know why, but I did not know he had an accent. Am I nuts? Or for years when he was first, what was he, National Security Advisor? Was that his position?
Yes.
Was there a time where we never heard him speak and then heard him speak, and I remember thinking, oh, he has an accent. I've never really heard this guy speak. Is that in your mind anywhere, or is that just one of Bobby's crazy things from back then?
You know, he taught for a long time, and he worked for the Rockefellers.
Oh, he did? That I didn't know.
Yeah, he was Nelson Rockefeller's foreign policy aide. They were his patrons. He was very ambitious, and he wanted power, and he wanted to exercise it. And when he saw Nixon win in '68, he jumped ship from the Rockefellers and went to work for Nixon. And then he and Nixon had this really weird, tortured, complicated, important relationship because, among other things, Nixon, you know, was very anti-Semitic. And the tapes, the Nixon tapes, there's some really ugly anti-Semitic stuff in those tapes. And so he would say stuff to Kissinger that makes you cringe when you listen to the tapes. But Kissinger, who of course is Jewish, who had fled the Holocaust, you know, put up with Nixon and never challenged Nixon on any of that.
Wow. I have heard some of the tapes, and how do you put up with something like that? How do you just not say anything? I mean, Kissinger's thirst for power must have been so big to put up with something like that. And then you read about them.
That's what his aides tell me.
Yeah, wow. So does any of his aides speak highly of him or mostly lowly?
Well, you know, they have mixed feelings. I mean, these are people who were eager to go to work for him. I mean, one of his aides, who I just interviewed, told me he had worked in the Johnson administration, and Kissinger came to him and said, come to work for me in this new Nixon administration. We're going to end the war in Vietnam. And so he said, how could I pass that up? And
that was Nixon's secret plan to end the war.
Nixon's secret plan. The whole idea was there's been a war run by Democrats, and now a Republican was in charge. Maybe Nixon, as they say, Nixon was the one who went to communist China. Who knew he would do something like that? Did the opening, he and Kissinger, to China. So some thought, okay, yeah, maybe he is going to really end the war. And kind of a complicated story, but I think Nixon did want to end the war, but he wanted to end it entirely on his terms. And the North Vietnamese just were not going to accept that.
This, of course, gave all new meaning to the button he had out in maybe '68. Nixon's the one, because he was the one in Watergate, and he was crooked, if you recall.
That's right.
Was Nixon
That's right.
One. So
and of course, you know, even his closest aides, Nixon's closest aides, are still kind of appalled and freaked out by what he did with Watergate. I remember I once interviewed Judge Bork, you know, who was nominated to the Supreme Court, and Bork's super conservative guy and was a supporter of Nixon. But I remember when I asked him about Watergate, he just gave this deep sigh and he said, oh my God, you know, the guy was in power. He'd won this landslide election in 1972 and he just threw it all away out of sheer paranoia.
It's unbelievable. And Bork later became a verb, to be borked.
That's right.
I've always wanted to become a verb. That's on my bucket list, actually. To become a verb, to become a category in Jeopardy, and to have a sandwich named after me at a deli. And none of those have happened.
All very, very important goals.
Yes. Well, Stephen and I grew up at the same time, so we spoke off the air a couple of weeks ago just to get to know each other a little. And I feel like we've been separated at birth. We had so many of the same experiences, the anti-Vietnam War stuff. I was in D.C. at that time as well, and we probably went to a lot of the same demonstrations as well, although they do say if you remember the 60s, you're lying. You weren't there because, you know, we're all doing drugs. Nobody remembers anything, right? All right, the phones are burning up, and people want to talk with you. This is fascinating stuff. I love this stuff. You know, during the day, you hang around sometimes with so many people in their 20s and 30s. You try to talk about something like this. They're like, there's a war in Vietnam? What? Now? They have no idea what you're talking about. They don't know Haldeman, Ehrlichman, Mitchell, and Dean. Do you remember that song? Haldeman,
yes,
Ehrlichman,
I do.
Mitchell, and Dean. Well, we should find that. George, see if you can find that, will you? It's called Haldeman, Ehrlichman, Mitchell, and Dean, the catchiest political parody ever.
We're Haldeman, Ehrlichman, Mitchell, and Dean. The way we've been treated is really obscene. To think that a bug worth hardly a shrug could end up by getting us tossed in the jug.
We all got the gate for no reason or rhyme.
You'd think we'd committed some horrible crime.
Our minds may be dirty, but our hands are clean. We're Haldeman, Ehrlichman, Mitchell,
and Dean.
It was a great song. They don't make them like that anymore. All right, Daisy from Brighton, you're first with Stephen Talbot on the new WMEX Live on the Bob Katzen Show. Thanks for calling, Daisy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Say hello to Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Hi, Daisy. You sound nice and clear out here in California.
Oh, good. I really loved the show. I just had a quick question. How did you get involved with the whole process? Did you want to do it? Did your parents try to get you involved?
Sure, that's a good question, as they say these days. But, my father was an actor. He was an actor his whole life. His name was Lyle Talbot. He was a movie star back in the 1930s under contract with Warner Brothers. And when I was a kid in the 50s, he had morphed into a TV sitcom actor. He was the next-door neighbor on the Ozzie and Harriet show for a decade. That money he made on that probably put me through college. But anyway, he was a lifelong actor. He was a lifelong actor. He loved acting. And in the summer, he used to do plays, travel the United States doing plays. He often did plays in Boston. And we traveled with him like a family of gypsies in a station wagon. My brother and two sisters and my mom, who sometimes acted with him, and they would travel the country and do summer stock. And then he worked all the time. And when TV, and mainly TV when I was a kid. So I would watch him do this, and he would take me on the set with him when I was very young, and we'd watch him in shows like Rin Tin Tin that I would watch on TV, or The Cisco Kid. And I was just totally dazzled by it. I thought this looked like fantastic fun. So I begged my parents to let me act, and they resisted because they had been around a lot of kid actors. My father used to say the only kid actor he ever loved was Shirley Temple. He was in a movie with Shirley Temple.
You're kidding.
And he admired her. But he always said, kid actors, it can be trouble. So if you want to be an actor when you would grow up, he would say, great, I'm all for it. But wait till you have an education and wait till you've grown up. So I just wouldn't say no, and I was probably a little obnoxious and badgered and begged, and finally they said, okay. And so I got an agent, and I started going out on auditions, and I got hired right away and started working, and Beaver was the one series that I was in for a long time, but I acted in many shows in those days, Perry Mason and Lassie and Wanted Dead or Alive, whatever was on TV in those days. And I loved it, totally loved it. My parents kept saying, though, you've got to stay in a regular school, so they would never let me sign a contract. The producers of the Beaver series always wanted me to be, like in every episode, or almost every episode, and sign a contract. But then you had to go to school at the studio. You had to drop out of regular school. So my parents would never let me do that, and I'm glad they didn't.
Sure.
So you went to regular school?
I did. So I was always in regular school, mainly public school. I later went to a private high school, but I was in a public school. And, when I had this totally weird arrangement where, at Leave It to Beaver, they would call up my agent and say, okay, Steve's in next week's episode. See if he can make it. And they would call me, and I would go, no, I got a test next week. I can't get out of it. And the agent would go, no, he's got a test. Write him out of the show, So it was a very unusual arrangement. But, most of the time I just took a couple of days off from school. Each half-hour episode took 3 days to film. And I would check out from school. And the law still is, in Board of Education, is that in an 8-hour day, a kid actor has to spend 3 hours in a classroom on the set.
Interesting. Now, so the rest of the kids, did they go on set? Did they go to teachers on set, or were they in private school as well?
Right. No, so Jerry Mathers played the Beaver, and Tony Dow, Wally, his brother, both great guys. The only school they went to was the studio school, which meant that they had teachers who were real teachers assigned by the Board of Education. And in L.A., this was a regular thing. There were a lot of teachers that did this since there were so many TV shows and movies being made. And they went every day to a teacher. And, when the show wasn't being filmed, they would go to that teacher all day.
The teacher wasn't Miss
No,
Landers?
it wasn't Miss Landers.
You're killing me here. Did other kids on the set go full-time to the on-set school like they did, or were they the only two?
No, they were the only two that I knew of. Because Eddie, Eddie Haskell, Ken Osmond, or his real name, he was a lot older than all of us. So he was no longer in school.
I see. Well, this I'll tell you what my plot was. Hey, Daisy, did you have another question? Thank you very much, by the way, for the call.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daisy.
Have a good night.
Oh, wait, Daisy, you still there? Did you have a crush on Stephen in the old days? That answers my question.
That to myself.
Lots of giggling. There's the answer. All right, Daisy, thanks so much for the call.
You're welcome.
She had the hots for you, Stephen, when she said, oh, no. Now, here was my plot. We're talking to Stephen Talbot, who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver from 1959 to 1964-ish. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So here was my plot. I haven't told many people this, and I'm going to confess it on the radio. My plot is I love the show so much because I grew up with the show. I can't tell you how much I loved it. It was just great. My plot was to get my family to move to California. I didn't know where. I mean, there was no computers and Google and finding out exact things so quickly. My plan was to move the family to right near, I had read in the newspaper that they had teachers on the set. I thought it was more than just Jerry and Tony. I thought it was like an entire class of Larry Mondello and all the other kid actors in real life were going there. So I thought I would move, and I was told that there were some people in the neighborhood, like just regular kids, who went there as well. This was all obviously inaccurate information. But I was going to move in the neighborhood, just be one of those kids, and then have them say, oh, by the way, the kids who live here go to the Leave It to Beaver school on set. And I was going to say, really? Oh, I didn't know that. What a coincidence. I'm going to be on the set with them and become a famous actor. It never worked out.
You were a schemer, though, Bob. I admire it.
Oh, I was scheming like I was obsessed with the show. I believe this was not like some idle thought of moving it. I was plotting it because my family thought I was nuts. Like, yeah, we'll move to Hollywood. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, Bob, one thing about this is, it used to be that studios would never let the public onto the lot because they thought that would blow it, that people would see how movies are made and it would destroy the magic.
Mm-hmm.
But Universal Studios, and that's where we filmed Leave It to Beaver for the second half of the run of the series, Universal got the idea that they should let the public on and make money. And, eventually they turned it into a giant amusement park. But they were the first studio that I know of to let people onto the lot in a very controlled situation back when I was working. And these tour buses would come on, they would park, they would watch you filming in front of the Leave It to Beaver house in suburban land on the lot, the back lot of Universal. And then a few of us might be taken over to introduce to the tourists who'd come in and wave or answer a question or two or shake hands. But that was the beginning of letting people behind the scenes, which, of course, proved to be phenomenally popular.
And they charged money for this in those early days as well? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think Universal, at a certain point, I know this, Universal much later, by the time they built the amusement park, it's like a Disneyland, they were making more money from that than they were from TV and movies.
Wow. It's sort of like the movie theaters making more money from the popcorn than the movie itself. Same idea.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow, this is inside stuff. I love the inside stuff because, I tried to get there as, I've not told many people that. Now, of course, I've told thousands of people what an idiot I was as a kid that I had this whole plot ready to go. Now, they're screaming at me, take the phone calls. So the calls are lighting up here. So let's go to Sandra from Hingham. You're next live with Stephen Talbot, who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver on the new WMEX. Yes. Hey, Sandra.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Say hi to Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. I am so excited to verbally meet you.
Well, great. Thank you.
I have one first quick question. Do you always have to feel people calling you Gilbert? Did you always have that with you, that people called you Gilbert?
It's gone through many phases, Sandra. When I was young and fairly recognizable from having been on the series, as late as when I was in college, for instance, and the series went into rerun, I got stopped a lot. And
was it fun? Did you like it?
It's gone through phases. When I was a kid and I was in the series, sure, I got a kick out of it. By the time I was in college and I was, a little counterculture-y and long hair, and it wasn't so cool to have been on Leave It to Beaver. And
really fun.
Yeah. So then I was a little less enchanted with the idea. But, now, of course, no one would recognize me at all. Very occasionally someone will say, hey, that voice, I've heard it somewhere.
Well, that sort of segues to one other quick question. Since you did the sitcom as a child, when and where did your interest in, music specials and music videos come into play. I read that in your bio.
Yeah, I love music, a wide range of music, but I'm a 60s kid, so especially rock and roll. My mother was a singer. My mother had been a professional singer. That's how she met my father. And she sang all the time. Our house was like a musical. She was a real character, my mother. And I always had an appreciation of music from her. My dad liked music, too. And my dad was in a lot of musicals where he would not sing. He was in My Fair Lady as, the sidekick to Henry Higgins, the other professor. Or he was
that's
King
cool.
he was King Pellinor in Camelot, the knight, the king who shows up in rusty armor with a sheepdog. Anyway, he did a lot of musicals. So I also saw my dad in Kiss Me Kate and South Pacific. He did South Pacific at Lincoln Center in New York.
Really awesome.
Yeah. So I grew up around musicals. I grew up around rock and roll. I've just always loved music. I used to sing as a kid in the choir. Just always loved music. And
that's great.
I had done sort of everything in public TV filmmaking except music. And so about 10 years ago, I did a couple of music specials, and I just loved doing them.
That's great. Well, thanks. That was really interesting.
Yeah, so as I asked the prior female caller, I have to ask every female caller this. Did you ever have a crush on Stephen?
Well, he certainly was the cutest one on the show.
Another indirect answer. That's great. That's great. Hey, Sandra, thanks very much for the call. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Nice
Thanks
to you,
again.
Sandra.
You have a great
Bye.
day. So, Steve, were you ever like the Teenage Idol on the magazines and stuff like that? Teen Beat Tiger, whatever it was there?
No, I was they didn't use the expression there, but I would have been preteen. The first Leave It to Beaver episode I made, I was 9 years old, and the last one, I was 14. So
just getting to that point where you could have been on Tiger Beat.
Well, yes, and it was interesting. I'll tell you the funny thing on Leave It to Beaver. We were all changing. Jerry was about a year and a half older than me. His voice changed first, and he used to be proud of having a deep voice, and he would deliver lines sometimes in a abnormally lower voice, and the directors would go, cut, come on, you're a kid, enough of that. And another time, they were doing a close-up in a scene, cutaways, and all of a sudden the director yells, cut. He goes, what the hell's on his upper lip? And the cameraman, who says, he's got a mustache. He's got mustache hair. The director is like, lose the mustache.
Next. And, of course, then they must have based the Wally Grows a Mustache episode on that, perhaps.
Exactly. So, we were all changing. We were all growing up. And actually, the last couple of episodes we were in, they introduced a couple of girls who Beaver and I competed over. So there was the hint of teenage romance just around the corner.
All right, speaking of which, were there any romances on the set between any of the actors, actresses, and so forth that we should know about?
It was the most wholesome set in the world, Bob. I hate to disappoint anybody, but the Leave It to Beaver set was like so calm, collected, professional, and easygoing compared to anything else I ever worked on.
Boring. Tell us what.
And on top of that, Hugh Beaumont, who was the father, he directed. He was a little bored after years of being just the father on that show, and so he got to direct some of the show. He was a good director, and he was an ordained minister.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, he's a Methodist.
I didn't know that. I knew he was the director because I would watch at the beginning of the episodes, and I liked when I saw that he directed the episodes. And how does that work when you're acting and you're directing as well? How does that, don't they sort of conflict?
It's tricky. Not everyone can do it, that's for sure, especially when you're directing yourself. You really have to be pretty experienced and pretty confident to handle that.
Do you yell at yourself like, cut? Well, which one do you
Internally. I'm sure there's a lot of internal turmoil.
I'm sure there is. Now, we have some other callers waiting, but I wanted to play this. I was doing some research a couple of days ago before the show, and I did not know, I don't know if you knew this or not, there was actually a song with the Toy Parade is the name of the song. That's the theme to Leave It to Beaver, of course. But there was a version with lyrics. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
It's ringing a vague bell.
Yeah, so we're going to play just a snippet of it. I never knew this. I was looking for interesting stuff. I said, I've got to find something that is, out of the way, out of the ordinary or something, and impress Stephen with this. So maybe I have found it. Here it might be. It's lyrics to the Toy Parade. Here it is.
Here they come. Here they come.
Tum-tee-tum, they're having a toy parade. A tin giraffe with a fife and drum is leading the Cupid Brigade. A gingham cat in a soldier's hat is waving a Chinese flag. A plastic clown in a wedding gown is dancing with Raggedy Ann. Fee-fi, fiddly-dee, they're crossing the living room floor. Fee-fi, fiddly-dee, they're up to the dining room door. They call a halt for a chocolate pop or cookies or lemonade. Then off they go with a ho-ho-ho right back.
All right, there you go. I had never heard that before. Does that ring more of a bell now, Stephen, or no?
More like a gong, I think, Bob.
It's an awful lyrics, isn't it? Hoo-ba-da-lee-ba-da-bee-ba. Now, the other thing I was fascinated with, this is another one of those bizarre things about my obsession with Leave It to Beaver. Polaroid cameras came out, I think, around that time that Leave It to Beaver was on, and was on in black and white, of course. So we tried to take a picture of the TV with the Polaroid to see if the TV screen would come out. This is what we did as kids in those days, right? I wonder if you can take a picture of black and white TV. So we took a Polaroid picture of it, and it was during the credits of Leave It to Beaver where it said hairstylist Florence Bush, which I always thought was funny because her name was Bush, and it was hair, and the hair was bushy, and, whole business. And I still have that somewhere in my picture collection, and I would use that as a trivia question. I was a DJ for a long time. Say, who was the hairstylist? And Leave It to Beaver, and nobody would know. And they say, who cares who the hairstylist was?
I can tell you that the makeup people on the show.
Wait, I know. Don't Jack
okay.
D. Jack D?
No, but the Westmore family.
Okay.
Yeah, they were big Hollywood makeup family, dynasty.
And
of course, it was weird as a kid to go in, and we had a lot of the times we had California tans anyway, Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, in those days, everyone wore makeup. So that was the first place you reported on set. Before you went to work, you had makeup applied.
Wow. Now, wasn't there a Jack Barron or something in the makeup department?
There was.
That was right with Florence Bush around that time.
Yeah.
I
there you go.
Know that. There you go. All right, here's the cut, the Florence Bush cut I found online.
And Florence Bush as the hairstylist.
Somebody else, apparently, besides me, was obsessed with the show. Puts that out online. Did you know Florence Bush?
Not that I recall.
All right, here's the number, kids. It's 781-834-WMEX. That's 781-834-WMEX or 781-834-9639. We're talking with Stephen Talbot, who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver, and the callers are burning up the phone line. Let's go to Marshfield and talk with Marty. Marty, you're live with Stephen Talbot on the new WMEX. Hey, Marty.
Hello. Hi, Bob.
How you doing? Say hi to Stephen.
Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Marty. How's it going?
Good. Hey, I was really enjoying the earlier part of your conversation about your other life, your second life in the news world. And it interested me because I'm also of a certain age and a certain generation when things were different. Nowadays, I'm teaching a journalism course. I'm teaching younger people, and they're so afraid to talk about stuff because it's become, especially if it's political, it's just become something you don't talk about because you don't want to upset people. And I'm wondering, maybe you have some thoughts, how would you approach that challenge? How do you explain to people that it's okay to talk about politics? There once was a time when it was perfectly fine. You could disagree with somebody and they didn't tear your head off. I wondered if you had any thoughts.
That's important. That's really important. I mean, look, we all know we're in an extreme moment in American history right now. I don't think the country has been this divided since the 1960s. And the country in the 1960s, we used to say, hadn't been as divided since the Civil War. So those are pretty extreme times. I mean, I think it's interesting that you teach journalism, Marty. I taught journalism at the graduate school at Berkeley, as a graduate school of journalism. And I taught there. We had a frontline office that was based there for many years. And I really enjoyed working with students there. You know, you just have to encourage, I don't know what the best advice is, but I think you just have to tell people that there have been long stretches of time in the United States where good, rational debate and arguments were the norm. And people did respect other people's opinions. I keep thinking, I grew up in Los Angeles, which back then, way in the 50s and 60s, was a solidly Republican town. And, my dad was a Republican back then. My mother was a Democrat. And, there were mixed marriages. And people got along. People were civil.
Right.
Or if they got angry, the anger passed. One of the things that get political here for a second, one of the things that really drives me crazy about Trump is just how extremist he is in his behavior and language. And I just think it's bad for the country.
Yeah, it's pretty clear he does it on purpose to get that result and to keep people from having conversations. So
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
I was just curious about your perspective on that. Thank you.
Well, and I'll tell you, Marty, to connect the two parts of my life, I've often thought recently if Beaver had been said now, and I can see a scene where Jerry Mathers, the Beaver, walks into his dad to ask him what the hell's going on with the president. And Hugh Beaumont has to sit him down and go, son, it's a long story, but,
Right.
This
time
for a
reboot.
Time for a reboot.
It only took about 2 minutes to get from Beaver's voice changing to Donald Trump. I don't know how we did that. It's unbelievable. Marty, thanks so much for the call. You have a great day in Hingham. Hey,
Thank you guys.
Steve, could you stay with us a few more minutes past the 7 o'clock ID? I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
That's great.
I can.
Okay, hold on. We're just kind of a station ID. We'll keep it brief, and we'll get right back to Stephen Talbot, who played Beaver. No, he didn't. He played Gilbert on Leave It to Beaver, and he's a big-time documentary maker now, and I'm a small-time radio host.
WMEX Quincy, Boston, streaming on the radio.com app. Just tell your smart speaker to play WMEX on radio.com. The greatest hits of all time are back. This is the all-new WMEX.
WMEX Boston. Gather round, everybody, 'cause you're about to hear the show that's gonna make you smile from ear to ear. It's Bobby Katzen in your radio. He talks to me and you. He sure can cure the blues, the 50s and the 60s, especially for you. It's Bobby Katzen in your radio. So come on, Bobby, do-do-do-do-wop. Let's go.
Oh, that's my cue. Hey, it's Bob Katzen on the Bob Katzen Show. I'm inside your radio, and we're talking with Steve Talbot, who played, I was going to say played Wally. No, what's the matter with me? Who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver from 1959 to 1964. And as opposed to growing up like me as a small-time radio host, he's a big-time documentary maker. And here's a little clip from Stephen in the show.
I'm not allowed to fall down. Hey, you're going to the movies this afternoon? I don't have any money. Boy, you're going to miss a neat movie. It's all about this professor guy who makes a mechanical man and who robs banks for him and everything. No fooling. It's got 2 television cameras for eyes. And later on it falls in love with the professor and starts killing people all over the place. Boy, oh boy. You can eat over at my house for free, and then we can go to the picture. Yeah? What are you having? Hamburgers and pie. Yeah. But I gotta pay Beaver back. What kind of pie? Apple with ice cream. And then after lunch, we can see the Iron Beam. Yeah. Yeah. Why should I let...
I can't, but that's an early one because it's with Larry Mondello, right?
Yes, yes. Now, I read that was the episode where Larry owed Beaver 75 cents, and Beaver couldn't go to the movie without the 75 cents. Larry promised to come over and give him the money, but then he went off with you and Whitey and went to the movies without Beaver.
Yeah,
very
well,
sad.
I was always leading people astray on the show. I was I was like...
the instigator.
The bad guy the light version, the instigator. The instigator. Beaver was always getting him in trouble. I think my signature episode was one where I got Beaver to make a face during a class picture, a school picture.
It's great, loved
and I
it.
told him I was going to do it too, and then I stopped. I didn't do it. I backed out, and he got nailed.
He was such a sap in the show. His character was such a sap for that stuff. Larry Mondello did it to him all the time. It's unbelievable. Here's a clip from one of Stephen's documentaries. This is from 1968, the year that shaped a generation. Has a little clip about RFK, that being Bobby Kennedy.
An extraordinary thing happened when Kennedy's body was transported by train to Washington for burial at Arlington National Cemetery. Thousands of people spontaneously appeared along the tracks in silent tribute.
There's a train a-comin'. You don't need no baggage. You just get on board.
I think an era ended with Robert Kennedy's death and Martin Luther King's. An era in which we could have accomplished great things working together, and doomed us for some time, and we may still be in that time, to be shattered and fragmented and something less than the people we could be.
And I think Jack Newfield said it best when he said, after that we became might-have-beens, a generation of might-have-beens.
That really struck me, the might-have-been generation, Steve. Brilliant.
Yeah, it does. I get emotional just listening to that. And the Chambers Brothers singing and Bobby Kennedy. I remember that train so well, and it's very moving footage of all people coming out, all sorts of people, white working class folks waving the flag, black people, young and old, as that train passes with his body being carried to Arlington National Cemetery.
And it wasn't planned at all. They would take him there by train. They thought maybe a few people would come out. He wanted to go on the train and have him go on the train and so forth. But just crowd after crowd. I remember there's one shot of a couple of Little League players or something. It's in your documentary. It just really made me start to well up in tears when I was watching it last night. The whole Bobby Kennedy thing was just awful. And we are the might-have-beens. Unbelievable. It was a great documentary, by the way. It was.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was one very close to the heart, and I'm glad I made that.
And that's right from your area, right in your wheelhouse, because you lived through it as well, so as I did.
It was. I actually was, a student volunteer. First in the Eugene McCarthy campaign, Clean for Gene, running as a peace candidate against Lyndon Johnson. New Hampshire primary had the big, we discussed this before, Bob, but, had the almost upset, and it was big enough. He won so many votes that people thought he had won, McCarthy in New Hampshire. But then, Kennedy was inspired by that, got in the race in 68, was running, and had even broader appeal. He appealed not only to the anti-war movement, but to, lots of, certainly to black people, certainly to white working class people, certainly to Irish Catholics. He had a really broad range, and he was kind of a existential character by then. His brother had been assassinated. He was going through lots of changes and supporting the United Farm Workers out in California, Cesar Chavez, when he went on a fast. Bobby Kennedy was a pretty extraordinary guy, and I was with my girlfriend getting into our car to drive down to the Ambassador Hotel when he won the primary in California in June, which meant he was going to be it. He was going to be the peace candidate in the 68 election and possibly the next president of the United States, and then he was murdered.
Did you arrive at the hotel to see the scene and so forth?
I didn't. Just as we were getting in, literally I was about a mile away. I was at my girlfriend's house, and her parents, as we were getting into the car to drive over there, said, no, stay here. He is coming out on the stage. It was very late at night. The vote count had gone late. It was a very hot night. So we went back in the house and watched him give that now famous speech to a very, very crowded room in the Ambassador Hotel, and then he stepped off stage, walking out of the hotel through the kitchen, and was shot and killed.
I remember it like it was yesterday, and the last words from here, it's on to Chicago, and let's win there, and then exit the stage, and then all hell broke loose. It's
exactly.
Just
it's like a terrible Shakespearean tragedy.
Yes, and it's like it was yesterday. We're talking with Stephen Talbot, documentary filmmaker. Is that the correct title, documentary filmmaker? Film documentary maker.
Sir.
Okay. Who also played Beaver. No, why do I keep saying that? He played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver, and the phones are burning up. He's agreed to stay with us a few more minutes and a couple more calls. Vinny from Lynn, you're next with Stephen Talbot and Bob Katzen on the Bob Katzen Show on the new WMEX. You're live. Hey, Vinny.
How you doing, Bob?
We're doing okay. Say hello to Stephen.
Hey, Stephen. How are you?
Pretty good, Vinny. How are you?
I'm doing well. One thing I was thinking about is that besides you, Beaver had the other friend. I guess it was Larry.
Yeah.
And were the times that was it always just either you or him or were there times where all three of you were on the show at the same time?
Yeah, well, Larry, who was a heavy-set kid, very funny, always reminded me of a young W.C. Fields, and he was always eating something in every scene. Larry was sort of the first main character who was Beaver's friend, and he was in the first couple of years of the series, and then, for reasons I don't know, dropped out, wasn't in it any longer. And my character, Gilbert, was kind of phased in. I think my first episode was maybe the second year of the series, and I would say that the character I played, Gilbert, kind of became, over time, Beaver's best friend. So in the early days, there were kind of three of us, the Three Musketeers, Larry Whitey, who's a short kid with, super platinum blonde hair, and myself. And later on, other kids who had less frequent roles were sort of, paraded through the show. There was a character named Richard, who actually was a good friend of mine at the time. So there were a bunch of us. But, Larry, Gilbert, and Whitey, I'd say, were the three main sidekick figures.
Yeah, Larry was more of the nerdy kid. At least for a while, you were kind of more like the bad boy, that he would sometimes get him into trouble, whereas Larry just was kind of a nerd, as I remember it.
Gilbert got everybody into trouble.
Right, and as I started to say earlier, the great character that they created in the show was Eddie Haskell, the two-faced, hypocritical guy, and who was always trying to get people in trouble, and he was kind of mean, real bad guy, sort of. And Gilbert, I would say, was Eddie Haskell light.
I like it. Eddie Haskell light. Hey, Vinny, thanks for the call. We got another caller waiting, but thank you very much for calling. Eddie Haskell light. I love it. 781-834-WMEX is the telephone number. And I remember, because I saw a couple of episodes, I binge on Leave It to Beaver sometimes. Andy Griffith, Leave It to Beaver, Bewitched, all this stuff. Now, you may know this or not, or maybe it's just my imagination, but in the first episode where you fought with Beaver, you moved in across the street and so forth.
Yeah.
And your father, you bragged that your father was in the CIA or other military type things, and he was in fact a flute player, I think, in a band. So
like a lot of CIAs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but then I remember another episode, you correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm just, again, too obsessed with Leave It to Beaver, but there was another episode where they referred to your father who couldn't go camping. Let's see, Ward was supposed to take everybody camping, and he couldn't go at the last minute. So they tried to get different people's father, and they tried to get your father, and they said, no, he has insurance business meeting, or so it was I don't know what it was, but it's some completely different job than the fife and drum player.
Look, there were always minor lapses in all these shows, and, it makes for great trivia games. What did they get wrong in this episode? I mean, my character, Gilbert, I think had two last names. It was mainly Bates, as you say, but for a while I was Gilbert Harrison. I mean, people didn't keep perfect track.
Yeah, you mentioned that in an email. How did
the one that always used to throw me was, I grew up in Studio City, North Hollywood, California. And off of Mulholland Drive, right up the canyon from us, was a reservoir, a lot of reservoirs in the Hollywood Hills. Mm-hmm. And this was a lake that was used constantly in the movies and TV shows as the lake scene. When Lassie would go to the lake, that was the lake. When the cowboys went to the lake, they went to that lake. And, I was a kid, but I would go to the rest of the people in the cast. Aren't people going to notice this? Ozzie and Harriet were fishing here last week at this lake. What am I doing here camping with the bees? I don't know. No one noticed. No one cared.
Yeah, I did see an episode of it was some drama. I forget what it was, a cops and robbers thing taking place in the Brady Bunch living room. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are they doing in the Brady Bunch living room? It's the same.
Or the house. The house on the back lot of Universal that was Cleaver's house, that became the house of Dr. Marcus Welby, M.D.
Really? I did not know that.
Series.
Wow, you're giving me
And I would say, aren't people in America going to notice that Dr. Welby moved into the Cleaver's house?
I love it. 781-834-WMEX. Susie from Malden, you're next with Steve Talbot, Gilbert from Leave It to Beaver, and the Bob Katzen Show live on WMEX. Hey, Susie.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great. Say hello to Gilbert. Stephen, I should say.
Hey, Stephen. Nice to talk to you.
Nice talking with you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is, I read an article that you wrote that I think you were in Weston, Mass. I could be mistaken about that, and someone told you that Jerry Mathers had died, maybe in Vietnam, and you were regretful that you had lost touch. And, of course, that story wasn't true. It was somebody else whose name was Mathers. So my question is, ever since then, have you kept in touch with him?
Yes, we have been back in touch. Mostly
that's
by
great.
email, sometimes on phone, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And Tony Dow, too, who I always admired.
Are
the
you?
older
I
brother.
did, too. Yeah. He was the wise one. He
Yeah,
was my kind of guy.
He lives in Topanga Canyon in Los Angeles, and he's a sculptor.
No kidding, an artist. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you ever see them, or you just get to talk to them?
Just talk to them. I haven't seen them for many years, I must say, but I have spoken, and we drop each other emails. In Michelle Obama's memoir, she refers to Leave It to Beaver a couple of times, saying that...
Oh, no, I have it, but I only just started it. I haven't read it. Does she really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, she says that Barack Obama used to tease her that she, Michelle, came from a black Leave It to Beaver family.
That's very funny. We all wish we did. I mean, that was like the ideal family, wasn't it, growing up?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, you said that your dad was an actor. I vaguely remember him. Did you ever get to do any acting with him?
No, we never. Funny, he was in a couple of episodes of Leave It to Beaver, but we never were in the same episode. But when he was in his 80s, he lived till 94. When he was in his 80s, yeah, he was an amazing guy. I hired him twice to narrate documentaries I made for PBS. And so I got to hire my dad to work for me, and he did a great job.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Interesting. He must have been excited about that, too.
I think he was.
Yeah. Now, did you act as an adult or only as a child?
Only as a child. I gave it up when I was about 15 and made a very conscious decision. I loved acting, but I just got interested in other things. In high school, I did a lot of plays. So I liked acting enough to keep doing it all through high school. But by the time I got to college, I was more interested in school, frankly, and a social life and politics and music.
Right, yeah. You went to school in Connecticut.
I did.
Yeah. I read up on you. I get interested when I hear that people are going to be on, so I kind of Googled some stuff. Yep, you went to a very interesting college.
Yeah, it was. It was quite different coming from California, but I wanted to have that.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have that East Coast experience. I actually, wanted to get away from Hollywood and see what the East Coast was like, and I'm very glad I did it.
How did you end up in Massachusetts?
Well, many reasons. Wesleyan's in the middle of nowhere in Connecticut.
Yeah, it is.
Middle town. So on any weekend we could get away, we went to New York or Boston. And Boston, especially in the 60s, well, still is, loaded with college kids. So I frequently went to Boston to hear music, to see friends, and then my girlfriend at the time from Los Angeles went to Boston University. So I went to see her.
And that is my alma mater, Boston University. Now, Susie,
yes.
I've asked all the women callers, did you have a crush on Stephen, on Gilbert?
Oh, you didn't hear me say earlier, I hate to say this, but I like the mature boys. I was into Tony Dow.
Oh, to Tony Dow.
And so were many other girls.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hey,
and I have to tell you, I could not stand Eddie Haskell. And to this day, I come across people who are like Eddie Haskell, and I immediately look at them and say, oh, my God, Eddie Haskell.
Hey, Susie, thanks very much for the call. Say hello to everybody in Malden for us, all right?
I will, Bob.
All right,
Thank
so what
you.
we should do, Stephen, we're running out of time now, what we should do is get you and Jerry and Tony on the phone at the same time for like a little mini reunion, because we hardly touched the surface of what we wanted to get here today.
Sure.
So would you be up for that?
That would be fun.
But you'd have to organize it. Can you organize it?
I'll do what I can, Bob. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking to your listeners.
Oh, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. You got two fascinating careers, the whole thing with Gilbert and then your documentary career is just great. And I've watched some of the documentaries. I do have a fake documentary voice if you're ever looking for somebody to narrate the documentary.
That's good. You need that voice.
It's fake, though. This is my real voice. Okay. But I can talk like that if necessary. All right, there's other stuff I wanted to get to. We had a quiz for Gilbert, all kinds of stuff, but we just kind of ran out of time because the callers just were beating down the door to call in. But let me ask you if there's anything we should know about you that would surprise people, anything like, I would never think that about him.
Okay, I'll leave you on this note. I don't want it to be a downer, but I did 3 episodes of Lassie, and there were, I hate to tell people, at any given time there were many Lassies. You know, there was the star Lassie, but then there was a running Lassie, different Lassies that were trained in their specialties, and there was Attack Lassie who did all the fighting scenes, and Attack Lassie bit me on the butt.
La, 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 I can't hear you. La, 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 I don't want to hear it. I thought there was one Lassie. La, 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 I got my fingers in my ears. La, la, la. He bit you on the butt.
Incidentally, I love dogs and I loved Lassie, but I liked Rin Tin Tin more.
Oh, a Rin Tin Tinner. Wow. I did not know you were a Rin Tin Tinner. Well, that changes everything. So did you get really hurt? Did it hurt when he bit? I assume it did.
It didn't. Well, yeah, it definitely hurt. And Les Weatherwax, the trainer, had to come and pull the dog off me. It wasn't the dog's fault. The dog was trained to attack when he heard sharp commands. It's a strange situation. But I must say, it was a little weird having beloved Lassie attack you.
So that's what they mean by somebody will bite you in the butt. It was Lassie.
That's right.
There you go.
Only time it's ever happened to me, so I remember it.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much for being on with us.
I tell that story, incidentally, Bob, to all my dogs.
You're name-dropping names of dogs.
I do.
Lassie, Rin Tin Tin, make them jealous of each other. I love it.
I tell my dogs, they could be working. They could be earning some money.
That's right. They need an agent. Steve, thanks so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. We're going to try to get you on with Tony and Jerry. I think that would be a fun reunion. We'll start to work on it. George can maybe work on it with you and see if we can get in touch with the guys. That would be great.
Okay, great, Bob. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for staying on longer with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk again.
Okay, bye.
Take care, Steve. Stephen Talbot played Gilbert on Leave It to Beaver. Boy, that was fun, and I'm obsessed with the Leave It to Beaver show, so it was really fun for me.
And Jerry Mathers, and Jerry Mathers, and Jerry Mathers,
and Jerry Mathers, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
As the Beaver.
Yeah. And we found that online as well, just a repetition of and Jerry Mathers, the Beaver. I love it. That was Stephen Talbot, who played Gilbert Bates on Leave It to Beaver. A lot of fun. Thanks for staying on some extra time with us, Steve. And we will try to get the reunion together of Wally, Beaver, and Gilbert. That would be terrific.
Call to the Bobby Katzen Show.
We love Bobby Katzen. He's in your radio. We just can't wait to make a call to the Bobby Katzen Show. Yeah, we love Bobby Katzen. He's in your radio. We love Bobby Katzen. He's in your radio. Yeah, 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 yeah. We love Bobby Katzen. We love Bobby Katzen. We love Bobby.
You're listening to the Bob Katzen Show on the new WMEX. We're going to start off with my buddy, Ken Golner. He's the official nostalgia news anchor of the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. It says, call Ken. His number is 9... Oh, no, what it's supposed to give out his number. What am I doing? It says, play Ken's jingle. Go.
Nostalgia news with Ken Golner.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Bobby. How are you?
How are you doing? Did you hear Stephen Talbot?
I did. That was a terrific interview. What a great guy.
Wasn't he fun? We're going to do a reunion with Wally. It's like my dream, a reunion of Wally, Beaver, and Gilbert. Maybe we'll get Larry, too.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
You'll be like a kid in a candy store.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to get right to your news report. Go. And now it's the official nostalgia news anchor of the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. Here's Ken Golner.
All right, here is your nostalgia news for October 11th, 2020. Guitar great Eddie Van Halen died last Tuesday at the age of 65. Van Halen had been battling many health problems in recent years, including tongue and throat cancer. His self-named rock group Van Halen was founded in 1972 and went on to sell more than 56 million albums in the U.S. alone. The band's first top 40 hit was 1979's Dance the Night Away. Their mega hit album, 1984, featured a string of hit songs, beginning with their only number one hit, Jump. Eddie Van Halen also created the final arrangement of and played guitar on Michael Jackson's 1983 blockbuster hit, Beat It. In 1980, he married actress Valerie Bertinelli, who starred in the 1970 sitcom One Day at a Time. They had one son named Wolfgang. They divorced in 2005, but remained close friends. Van Halen was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. Rest in peace, Guitar God. Legendary actress Angela Lansbury turns 95 this Friday. Her prolific career has produced 5 Tony Awards and 6 Golden Globes. Lansbury has also been nominated for 3 Oscars and 18 Emmys. Her first 2 film roles, in 1944's Gaslight and 1945's The Picture of Dorian Gray, resulted in Oscar nominations. Her third nominated performance, in 1962's The Manchurian Candidate, is widely viewed as one of the best portrayals of a villain in movie history. Lansbury's stage career included Tony wins in Mame, Gypsy, and Sweeney Todd. She is most beloved for her 1984 to 1996 run as Jessica Fletcher on the TV series Murder, She Wrote. Younger audiences delighted in her role as Mrs. Potts in the 1991 animated version of Beauty and the Beast. And just 2 years ago, she appeared in Mary Poppins Returns as the Balloon Lady, singing the beginning refrains of the movie's climactic number, Nowhere to Go But Up. Happy birthday, Mrs. Fletcher. One of the most popular and influential comic strips in history made its debut 70 years ago this month. Peanuts, written and illustrated by Charles M. Schulz, first appeared in 7 newspapers on October 2nd, 1950. The debut strip introduced the characters of Charlie Brown, Shermie, and Patty. Snoopy first appeared 2 days later. During the 1950s alone, Schulz introduced 6 more characters, including Schroeder, Lucy, Linus, and Sally. Over nearly 50 years, Schulz wrote nearly 18,000 strips. The final Peanuts strip ran on February 13th, 2000, one day after Schulz's death. By that time, Peanuts ran in over 2,600 newspapers with a readership of 355 million in 75 countries. It was translated into 21 languages and continues today in reruns. Peanuts became a merchandising empire, spawning toys, wildly popular TV specials, and a hit Broadway musical. All told, Peanuts earned Schulz more than $1 billion during his lifetime. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. The Public Broadcasting Service, or PBS, was launched 50 years ago on October 5th, 1970. PBS took over the functions of National Education Television, which was founded in 1952 to distribute educational programs to local TV stations. Though billed by some as the 4th network in 1970, PBS is technically not a network like today's 5 major commercial broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and the CW. It serves as a program distributor that provides television content and related services to its member stations. Today, PBS maintains the largest network of affiliated stations with 354 covering all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 4 U.S. possessions. PBS is funded by a combination of member station dues, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, pledge drives, and donations from both private foundations and individual citizens. Its shows have shaped generations of kids who grew up with the programs such as Sesame Street, The Electric Company, and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This is Ken Golner, the official news anchor of the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show, riding a wave of nostalgia and surfing the internet so you don't have to.
I don't know where you get this stuff, but it's great stuff.
It's
really
good, right?
Super stuff. I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. All right. Did you know, number 1?
So now regarded as one of the all-time best guitarists, Eddie Van Halen actually began on the drums.
I did not know that. Did you know number 2?
Eddie Van Halen and Valerie Bertinelli's son Wolfgang joined the band in 2006 as the band's bassist. He was only 16 when he started touring with the band.
Imagine that, 16 touring with the band.
Right?
A childhood dream. Did you know number 3?
Angela Lansbury Lansbury had a long-lasting friendship with fellow actress Dee Arthur. The two co-starred in the production of Mame, which resulted in both Lansbury and Arthur winning Tony Awards for their respective performances.
Did you know number 4?
The original name for the Peanuts comic strip was Little Folks, but a manager at United Features Syndicate noted the popularity of the children's program Howdy Doody and its Peanut Gallery of Children. The title of Peanuts was forced upon Schultz, much to his consternation.
Wow. Did you know number 5? I didn't know that.
Snoopy has 5 siblings. Spike was the first Snoopy brother, introduced in 1975 and named after Charles Schultz's childhood pup. Snoopy's other siblings include Marbles, Olaf, Andy, and his only sister, Belle.
What about Dasher, Prancer, Rudolph? Is that... Oh, no.
I think they got work elsewhere.
Dopey and Doc and...
Right.
No, those are the dwarfs. I'm confused.
Colder climate, yeah.
The final, did you know, number 6?
Well, this ties in partly to your talk with Steve Talbot. WGBH-TV in Boston has been one of the most successful program developers among PBS affiliates, producing such shows as American Experience, Antiques Roadshow, This Old House, The French Chef, Masterpiece, Nova, Frontline, which Steve worked on, and of course, the kids show Zoom.
I didn't know that. You know, usually I sometimes know maybe one of your 6, but I knew none of those.
Ah, that's good. I like that.
Which is why it's called Did You Know? I love it. What's up for next week, Ken? What's the lead story? Do we know yet?
Yeah, I'm hoping for fewer celebrity passings because I feel better when I don't have to talk about those. But we'll throw in a few birthdays and a few anniversaries to be determined.
As soon as I see that somebody from our generation has passed away as celebrities, I immediately think of you, and as you know, I send you an email or something.
That's right.
Maybe you want to use this. Sort of like you're not going to see it, of course you're going to see it. You're watching out for this stuff.
Unfortunately.
But Ken is so
that's
nice.
That's all right. They deserve to be recognized, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. But I'm saying you could be mean and write back to me, Bob, this is my job. I do this. Of course I know so-and-so died. But you haven't done that as yet, so you're very kind.
No.
I appreciate
I told you once I would do the Internet surfing, so you don't have to.
Yes, exactly. That's a great slogan. You should use that as a sign-off kind of thing.
All right, let me think about that.
Okay. Ken, thanks so much for being with us today.
You bet.
We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next Sunday.
Have a great night.
All right. Ken Golner, the newscaster, the nostalgia newscaster here on the Bob Katzen Show on the new 1510 WMEX.
Bobby, bo, Bobby, banana, bo, Bobby, bye, mo, Bobby, Katzen, bo, Batzen, banana, bo, Batzen, bye, mo, Matzen, Katzen, the Bobby Katzen Show.
It should be Joe, banana, Flow, Joe, be by Joe. Sometimes I almost got into trouble there. Joe, because we're going to talk in a moment, right now I'm talking to myself, with Joe McMillan, who is the Monday through Friday 2 to 6 p.m. We call part of that as drive time. In the radio business, they put the really good people in those slots, not like me, Sunday 6 to 8. It's weekend time. Yeah, put cats in there, whatever. Get rid of him or something. And he's been around for a long time, and you all know him and love him. It's Joe McMillan. Hey, Joe.
I loved listening to Gilbert on Leave It to Beaver.
Wasn't he the best? He's just great. And
he really was. I used to know Robert Horton from Wagon Train, and I had him on the radio a bunch of times. He was pretty good, too.
Love it. And I meant to ask him this. He sort of sounded like Gilbert did. I mean, I realize he's like 71.
He sounded just like the young Gilbert, which means we all sound like we did when we were 10 years old, but we don't realize it.
Yeah, apparently you had that very deep voice when you were 10, right? Pass the ketchup, Mom.
I don't know. I don't really have a deep voice. I don't understand that sort of stuff. I just talk the normal way I do every day. Anyway, I think your show is great. I love listening to Gilbert. I hope you can get those characters together again from Leave It to Beaver. That'd be great.
Oh, that would be terrific. We want to get Tony Dow, Jerry Mathers, and maybe who played Larry Mondello? I can't remember his name. Anybody know?
I wish Hugh Beaumont was still around. He was the best dad ever on TV.
Oh, Hugh Beaumont, just absolutely the best. In the pilot...
And if you think about about it, the shows were so funny because of Hugh Beaumont's comments. You can say Beaver was the star, but Hugh Beaumont was the co-star.
Yes, oh, absolutely. And he directed several episodes. And, he was not in the pilot. The pilot, I forget the guy's name.
I saw the pilot. They had some guy who was sitting around a chair smoking.
Yes, he was smoking cigarettes. Exactly. It's like...
I know.
That was
now,
the
you
pilot.
Can't smoke around the beef.
Yeah, what's the deal with that? I'm like, I was flabbergasted. That's probably why they dumped him. They said, you can't smoke on the set, so we're going to get you Beaumont.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'm not saying I'm surprised, but I can't believe how many calls you got talking to Gilbert. I mean, this radio station is really on fire right now.
The new WMEX 1510, and Joe owns afternoons, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6. Tell people a little bit about your long career.
All right. I started out in St. Johnsbury, Vermont years ago, and then I worked at WHDH. I was the official weekend guy, along with Sean Casey, also Dave Supple, Tom Kennedy, Jess Kane. I even filled in for Jess Kane one morning when he didn't get in, on time. That was kind of a thrill. I did that for about 3 years. Yeah. I worked at Oldies 103. I did WROR. In fact, I took over after Joe Martell left and did Saturday Night Live at the Oldies for like 3 years. And we did it Saturday and Sunday. Then I did WVBF and, of course, WATD. I was there about 3 different times.
So did you get fired from all these gigs, Joe? Is that what happened?
Well, I just left and went other places. Plus, I did Afternoon Drive in San Francisco at KABL out in the 90s. I've known Ed for 50 years. So I was there in the beginning of WATD. I left and I came back. He always gave me a job, and I appreciate that.
All those names you mentioned, I remember all of them. Jess Kane, Tom Kane, just all of them. Those were the days, weren't they?
Austin of Boston, he was the morning guy at Oldies 103. Paula Street's down in Florida right now. They were all great people. I mean, Oldies 103, I feel like we've taken over what they did, and once we get the FM on the air, which is coming soon, I just can't tell you when, the station's going to be incredible.
Nobody told me this. Nobody tells me anything. I'm just the weekend guy, They don't know. You find out everything.
There's an FM coming. The FM's already approved. We just don't have a date on it yet, but it will cover the greater Boston area.
I did not know that. Wow. Now, you remember Dan Donovan on the old WMEX years ago.
I do. And I remember Larry Justice when I was 14 years old on the old WMEX, and now he's still there.
He is. He hasn't left. He's still there. He's on mornings 9 to 2. And Dan Donovan...
That's right. Right after the 9 o'clock news until 2, he's still there.
He's still there.
Except I'm not the same age anymore. I don't understand it.
And then you're on from 2 to 6. And those of you who don't know about the old MEX, in the old days, they had what they called house names. Dan Donovan was a house name.
I heard about that.
And
in fact, J.J. Jeffrey, who's on WRKO, he did Melvin X Melvin, I guess, for a while. In the morning, then he was somebody else in the afternoon for one summer. He was two guys.
It was unbelievable. So Dan Donovan would be one person, for a year or two, and they would fire him. He would leave. They would just bring another person in, call him Dan Donovan, as if nothing had changed. Different voice, the whole business. But it was a house name. They couldn't get away with that today. I don't think it would work.
Radio changed after that. They just fire you, and they didn't care who they brought in.
Yes, right, exactly. All right, so you're on 2 to 6, and the FM is coming soon. This is breaking news.
Well, yeah, I've heard about that. We're already approved for an FM. It will be coming soon, hopefully the next couple of months or so. But I don't have an exact date. You didn't know we're supposed to get an FM with this?
Nobody tells me anything. I'm the lonely weekend guy. I don't know anything. I know nothing.
AM radio stations nowadays that I guaranteed an FM, but, you can apply for it. Yeah, we have an FM coming, just like the FM in Brockton. There'll be one for WMEX.
Extra cool. I did not know that. Breaking news. At least for me, it's breaking news. Joe's on every Monday through Friday from 2 to 6, and I listen every afternoon while I'm working on my other job and so forth, and you'll love it. Tune him in. Joe McMillan, 2 to 6, Monday through Fridays.
We play music that people want to hear. All right, thanks, Bob. I know you got to run.
Hey, Joe, thanks. Thanks for being on with us. Joe McMillan, 2 to 6, weekdays, Monday through Friday on the new WMEX, which is coming up with FM. Did you know that, George or Connor? Nobody tells me things. Did either of you guys know that? I had no idea.
Bob, I'm in the same boat as you.
Oh, yeah. We work the weekends. They just kind of ignore us. Connor must have known because Connor works on Joe's show, right? Connor, did you know this?
Connor is actually busy with the phones, but I'm pretty sure he's in the same boat as us, actually.
Oh, all right. So he's clueless, just like us.
Yeah.
Bobby Katzen. Bobby Katzen, Bobby Katzen on WMEX.
All right, we have more reviews and stuff to get in. It's time for Don't Touch That Dial with Len Mihalovich. They still put it in parentheses how to pronounce it. They don't trust me. Mihalovich. Mehalohovich. The official TV reviewer for the Bob Katzen Show. It says, call Len at 5... Oh, no, we're not supposed to give out the number. I keep doing that. And it says, play Len's jingle. Go.
Len Mihalovich, part-time action hero and full-time professional TV remote operator.
I love it. Now it says Len and Bob chat. Hi, Len.
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
We're out of time, so we're going to go right to your review. We have no time to chat.
No time to chat. Okay.
And today, Len is going to review Batman. Take it away, Len. It's all yours.
Thank you, Bobby. This week's TV show was based on a comic book. Holy mid-season replacements, Batman. In January of 1966, the TV adaptation of Batman premiered on ABC. The show was different in many ways. First, you would expect a show made from a superhero comic book to be an action-adventure themed show, but this was designed as a sitcom. It was a campy experiment by producer and announcer William Dozier, and in my opinion, it paid off. Batman stars Adam West as Bruce Wayne, a millionaire whose parents were murdered by a criminal and has vowed to spend the rest of his life fighting crime in his home of Gotham City. Don't tell anybody, but he's also Batman. His trusty teenage sidekick is Robin the Boy Wonder, played by Burt Ward. Robin often states the obvious for the audience, framing it around his catchphrase of holy, insert catchphrase here. The supporting cast is Alan Napier, who plays Alfred the Butler. After all, if Bruce Wayne didn't have a butler, he would get thrown out of the Millionaires Club. And yes, Gotham City does happen to have a Millionaires Club for him to get kicked out of. Other supporting actors are Neil Hamilton as Commissioner Gordon and Stafford Repp as Chief O'Hara. The police don't do much in this show, but Commissioner Gordon did have the good sense to deputize Batman and Robin, so they're not technically vigilantes. Then there's the villains. Famous celebrities from stage and screen lined up around the block to play a villain on this show. Stand-up comic Frank Gorshin was the first as the Riddler. Burgess Meredith starred as the Penguin, and Cesar Romero flawlessly portrays the insane Joker. They were all from the comics, but there are many other bad guys that were created specifically for the series that were every bit as entertaining. My favorite custom villain is King Tut, portrayed by Victor Bono. Tut was a professor at Yale who gets knocked on the head with a brick during a peace rally and turns evil. I've never been to a peace rally at Yale, but clearly you need to keep your head down. Millionaire Bruce Wayne spends a fair amount of his income on bat equipment, it would seem. From a nuclear-powered Batmobile housed inside a technology-rich bat cave dug right underneath stately Wayne Manor, to various bat cycles, bat go-karts, bat boats, bat copters. Seriously, how none of these subcontractors ever figure out Bruce Wayne is Batman? Holy spill the beans, Batman. Did I just say that on the air? I hope the Joker isn't listening. What makes this show so unusual is the theme of the show. Holy double meanings. I'm not talking about the opening tune, whose words are so easy to remember, but the writing of the show. As a kid, it would seem like super serious crime drama, but adults would appreciate it on a different level. The campy, over-the-top acting and dialogue are what drives it to be funny most of the time when you aren't expecting it. The sets and props contribute greatly to the campy theme. One show has Batman pouring alphabet soup into the Bat computer to decode secret messages. When Batman and Robin find the villainous hideout, the announcer says, in a seldom-used warehouse across town, you will then see them enter a building where the sign actually says a seldom-used warehouse. These villains are always shown with a tilted camera angle. They're crooked, right? So the camera angles are shown that way. The script revolves around the villain's plot that particular week. Catwoman may be going back to school, or the Penguin is running for mayor, or maybe the Joker will challenge Batman to a surfing contest. All the henchmen are named for the crimes that week and are dressed in a henchman costume conforming to that particular villain. The best are Catwoman's henchmen with the groovy leopard shirts and the cat-eared hats, and the worst have to be King Tut's men in full Egyptian tunics. I've often wondered, do the henchmen have to provide their own uniforms, or is there a store that they send them all to? Maybe it's like at a sub shop when they give you your first work uniform, but you have to buy the extras that you might need, so if you don't do laundry the next day. The show runs a half an hour, but it's on an unprecedented 2 consecutive nights a week. Even though most episodes end in a cliffhanger death trap waiting for the Cape Crusaders, you don't have to wait more than one night to see how it plays out. Usually the resolution is some sort of silly defense that Batman foresaw, but the audience never would. Like when the Penguin dropped Batman and Robin in a vat of acid, and Batman replies, "Good thing we remembered to wear our acid-proof costumes." Why is that ever a wardrobe choice? Shouldn't all the costumes be acid-proof? And how were their eyes, faces, and Robin's exposed legs protected? Like most TV shows, the physics doesn't work here either, but it's often good for a laugh. I could go on and on about the show, but suffice it to say, it's a super groovy show to watch and perfect for its unique, campy superhero sitcom. I predict great Bat things for the show ahead. Maybe there will be a Bat movie, or we'll see Ace the Bat Hound or Barbara the Batgirl someday. Holy perfect scores. I'll give Batman 10 out of 10 flying batarangs of justice. This is Len Mihalovich, part-time action hero and full-time TV remote operator for the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. Tune in next time. Same cat time, same cat channel, but for now, don't touch that dial because Bobby is back.
Holy Len Mihalovich, enunciated in parentheses here. I love it. Now I decided after hearing that, and Rob and Connor and Ken and so forth, we should bring this show on the road sometime when the COVID thing, is over. Just do a road show. This is like stand-up comedy you guys are doing. It's beautiful.
I agree, Bob.
I love it. That would be great.
It would be fun.
Bobby Katzen.
It's Did You Know time. Did you know number one?
In 1998, I was stuck in an elevator with Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl in season 3 of the series. Every fanboy's dream.
I wish we had time for the details. Did you know number two?
The show had some famous musical guests. Chad and Jeremy and Leslie Gore both had singing numbers during their respective run-ins with Catwoman.
I did not know that. Number 3, did you know?
There were so many celebrities at the time who wanted to be on the show, they had to add a sequence where when climbing up a wall, a star would pop his head out to talk to Batman and Robin. This resulted in the first on-screen appearance of martial arts legend Bruce Lee when he popped his head out of the window dressed as Kato alongside the Green Hornet.
Wow. I don't know any of this stuff. Did you know number 4?
The pilot episode had Batman in a bar and Jill St. John slipped some liquor into his orange juice. One sip and Batman was hammered. The result is he invented a new dance called the Bat-Tusi. The dance was kept famous over the years by John Travolta in the movie Pulp Fiction.
Bat-Tusi. Oh, that's the Watusi. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love it.
It was a version of the Watusi, yeah.
I love it, Len. That was great. But it's stand-up material, I'm telling you. This is really, really good stuff. Now, I'm going to guess the TV show you're going to review next week. George has it there. I have not seen it. It's been sealed in a hermetically sealed Funkin' Wagon.
You are never going to get this one.
Oh, a challenge. George, write it on the screen to me. All right? Write it on the screen. You won't know. Okay, so here is next week's TV show, and I'm going to guess it in a moment. I happen to know that. I happen to know that one. Yes. Yes. All right, George. Let me have my moment here of silence because you're going to be amazed that I know this, Len. You ready?
Okay.
The Howdy Doody Show.
Wow.
Completely wrong. I know. I have no idea.
Not even one right letter. Yeah.
It did sound like Fingernails on the Chalkboard at the beginning. Is that the name of the show, Fingernails on the Chalkboard? No, apparently not. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Since Len had predicted to me a few days ago, he said, you'll never get this, and he was right. And George, of course, is so honest, he wouldn't write the answer for me up on the screen here. Otherwise, I could have made believe I knew it. But it's honest George, honest Abe. So we're going to open the lines at 781-834-WMEX. If you know the name of that show, then we will have a copy of Len's comic book. Len, we don't get to talk about this often, is a comic book writer, and it's The Adventures of Tracksuit Man, a real-life social media adventure. And you'll get an autographed copy of that, autographed by Len, if you can identify the TV show that Len will be reviewing next week. We just played it, and I was clueless. Len, always the best. Thank you so much. We're going on the road.
Absolutely. Count me in.
All right, great. Thanks, Len. Len Mihalovich, the official TV reviewer for the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. So 781-834-WMEX. If you think you know the name of that TV show, we will be reviewing. I've never heard of it. I think it's some kind of oddball TV show. I don't know. We'll find out. So if you know, give us a call.
Bobcat, the irrepressible Bobcat. The true professional, close friends get to call him BK. If they call his show every day, Bobcat. He does his morning show, tune in and see. He's the cat with the chat, but above all of that, he's the most hip host, Bobcat.
In the meantime, we have Rob Stone, the official movie maven and Academy Award aficionado for the Bob Katzen Show. Oh, Rob.
Oh, Bob.
Hello there, Rob. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It says play Rob's jingle.
Rob Stone, movie maven, Academy Award aficionado. He ought to be in pictures.
Let's see now. It says play 20th Century Fox fanfare. Bob and Rob talk. I wonder if that's different than Len and Bob chat. There's a chat, there's a talk. I don't know, but Rob will be reviewing the 10 Commandments. Take it away, Robbie.
Thanks, Bobby. Cecil B. DeMille, the epic maker, has given us another of his over-the-top, but not in a good way, entertainment. The film is The 10 Commandments. This biblical epic is plagued, see what I did there, with bad performances and an embarrassing script. After the overture, you know you're in for an ordeal when they have an overture, Mr. DeMille emerges from behind a huge curtain to introduce the film and explain some things. You really know you're in trouble when they feel they need to explain things to you. With embarrassing gravitas, Mr. DeMille proceeds to explain how the scriptwriters came up with all the stuff they came up with, to explain the 30-odd years of Moses' life that the Bible omits. At the end of this sermon, a speech, Mr. DeMille risks telling us the running time of the film, well over 3.5 hours. Oy vey. But comforts us with the assurance that there is an intermission, also known as an early exit. So, what, if anything, is good about the film? The visuals. They usually are in a DeMille film. Some of the special effects are actually special. The parting of the Red Sea is pretty impressive, and some of the production design effects are also very good. The costumes and settings are very ornate and colorful. One element I truly enjoyed was the depiction, I presume historically accurate, of how the Pharaoh's city was built.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
My favorite fake set shows up at the beginning of the movie when the infant Moses is placed in a wicker basket and sent down, or was it up, the Nile, and his sister Miriam follows the basket, wading in the Nile all the way to Pharaoh's palace. The baby Moses and Miriam make it. Guess those famous Nile crocodiles had the day off.
See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile.
This outdoor scene was necessarily and unfortunately, obviously, filmed indoors at the Paramount Studio in a large swimming pool with the requisite now reads added for authenticity. Think Esther Williams in a swamp.
Well, I love that dirty water.
So what was so bad about the film? Just the acting and the writing. DeMille is certainly not known for drawing out great acting from his epic casts, but some of these performances are epically bad. Ann Baxter plays Nefertiti, the beloved of both Ramesses and Moses. Someone should have told Miss Baxter this isn't a silent movie and she should tone down the dramatics and mugging a wee bit. Charlton Heston as Moses gives a wooden performance until he becomes religious and then goes to the other extreme. Someone should tell Mr. Heston that there is more to acting than just jutting out his chin. Cedric Hardwicke as Moses' adoptive father looks bored, almost as much as I was. Judith Anderson and Vincent Price are wasted. And then there's Edward G. Robinson in a biblical epic. I kept seeing him as the gangster Rico he portrayed in Little Caesar, replete in an Egyptian headdress. But no cigar, yeah. I guess the exotic-looking Yul Brynner as Ramses fares the best. I enjoyed his numerous proclamations of, "So it is written, so shall it be done," arms akimbo on his impressive legs. A cast has to have something of quality with which to work, if they're going to have a chance. This script definitely failed them. Trite dialogue and verbose speechifying. But I will give the screenwriters this much. They demonstrated why the Bible omitted 30 years of Moses' life. It isn't that interesting, and it lends nothing to the overall importance of Moses' life to those of faith. Mr. DeMille, you have broken the seventh commandment. Thou shalt not steal. You have stolen nearly 3¼ hours of my life and 75 cents of my hard-earned cash. Never again. So I have written, so shall it be done. The 10 Commandments barely raise 1 bag of stale and unbuttered popcorn. I'd rather have boils. This is Rob Stone, movie maven and Academy Awards aficionado for the Bobby Katzen Baby Boomer and Gen X show. Gee whiz, I ought to be in pictures.
Cecil, I love it. Bernie and Cecil. Great review. Did you know number 1?
No one is officially credited with being the voice of God in the scenes that depict the burning bush and the etching of the commandments. Whoever it was, the voice was altered with sound effects. Rumors and claims abound. Possibilities include DeMille and Heston, among others. In his 1995 autobiography, Heston maintained he was the voice of God. Not in the movie, just in real life.
Did you know number 2?
The effect of the hailstones was accomplished by using spray-painted popcorn, and not as it has been reported by theatergoers who ran out of Rotten Tomatoes. I refrained from adding to the effect with my stale popcorn.
I've lost track. Did you know number 3?
3. The
I'm
10
sorry.
Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille's biggest commercial success, was also his final film. He died 3 years later.
And did you know number 4?
According to Edward G. Robinson, his career was saved by his being cast in this movie, as offers for work had dried up due to his left-wing politics. The hiring of Edward G. Robinson by DeMille, therefore, undermined the Hollywood blacklist of the 1950s. Bravo for that, Mr. DeMille.
Wow, how Hollywood has changed.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. I love it. We're taking you on the road with us. What's next week's movie?
We're going to go scary movies. I think I'm going to do Night of the Living Dead.
All right. All right, it will be spooky.
Hope so.
Rob, thanks very much. Terrific. We love it.
Okay, we'll see ya.
Thanks so much for being with us. He'll probably be back next week, the movie maven of the Bob Katzen Gen X and Baby Boomer show or something like that.
Bobby cat, oh Bobby, Bobby cats and Bobby cat, oh Bobby, Bobby cats and Bobby cat, oh Bobby, Bobby cats and Bobby Katzen on MEX.
Thanks to all the callers. Thanks to George. Thanks to Connor. We'll be back here next week between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And this is our last dance where we play Everything's Gonna Be All Right, but we're only going to play like 15 seconds of it. Go ahead, Bob.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right.
All right, that's actually the song for the times with the COVID virus and all that. Bob Marley, we didn't get to play the whole thing. We'll try to do that next week. We've never gotten to the whole thing because we run out of time all the time. Hey, George, thanks. Connor, thanks. You guys are the best. Now it says Bob does the closing line. Oh, yes, okay. We'll be back next Saturday, or Sunday, actually, between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Thanks to Stephen Talbot and Joe McMillan as well. This is Bob Katzen reminding you to cherish your yesterdays, dream your tomorrows, but live your todays. Have a great week.
Happy trails to you.
Good night, my love.
Good night, sweetheart. Good night.
That's all, folks.
Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jeff. Good night, David.
So long, farewell. I'll be there saying good night.
I'm so glad we had this time together.
Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene.
And good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Don't come back now. Cheers.
Talking Bobby, talking Bobby. My, oh my, how the time does fly. And now it's time to say goodbye. He's been talking to you on WMEX. Tune him in again. Bobby shows the best. Talking Bobby, talking Bobby, talking Bobby, Talking Bobby. He'll talk to you again on WMEX. Talk to you again on MEX. Talking Bobby. Talking Bobby. Talking Bobby. He'll talk to you again on MEX.
Bob Katzen has left the building. Thank you and good night.
WMEX Quincy, Boston, streaming on the radio.com app. Just tell your smart speaker to play WMEX on radio.com. The greatest hits of all time are back. This is the all-new WMEX.
WMEX Boston.